All right, well, we'll call our Metro Management Council meeting to order. It's our December 15, 2021 meeting. We do have a quorum with four of us. Councilor Erickson is absent today, so we'll get started with our first order of business, item 1, which is to approve our agenda, which is in front of y'all, so just need a motion to approve that, please.
So moved.
Second.
All right, motion by Karski, second by Benninga. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, that passes. Item 2, public input. Anyone here for public input today? All right. Hearing none there, we're going to move to item 3. It's our minutes from our last meeting, which was back in August. Those have been provided to you all for review, and if there are no changes, I need a motion there to approve those.
Move to approve.
Second.
All right, motion by Kylie and seconded by Karski on that. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, minutes are approved. Move to item 4, our director report from Scott. Scott, good afternoon, man.
All right, good afternoon, Mayor and council members. We have kind of a marathon agenda today to work through, so I'll just go ahead and get started. First item is kind of a staffing report for you. Metro has experienced improved retention of staff, having received only 2 resignations of full-time non-probationary staff this year. One of those operators has returned to us in a temporary status, so we really appreciate him coming back into our agency to provide some additional hours. In 2021, 2 operators completed the 26-week training program that we have. There are 3 that are currently in training and 5 that did not complete the training. I think that's an indication of how complex and difficult the work is that in some cases, as we go through our training phases, operators decide that it's more overwhelming than what they expected. So that does sometimes happen in our environment. Currently, Metro has 3 vacant operator positions. We're intending to fill 2 of those on December 27th with a new recruit class that we have starting. So recruitment has remained strong throughout the year for us. We have seen increased interest from applicants residing outside of South Dakota. This year was our first year of continuous application process, which has given us, it's been successful for our agency to do that. It's given us some flexibility both for the candidates, especially folks that are applying from outside of the state, and it's given us more flexibility as a leadership team to coordinate all the resources that go into the application process. So I'm going to give credit to Anna on that because that was her idea to move to a continuous hiring process, and it's worked out well for us. The second item is an update pertaining to the 911 profession. Like many professions, there are staffing shortages across the nation. There is some difficulty recruiting operators across the nation. And what we're finding is that through professional 911 publications, that many of the larger public safety answering points are struggling to find those operators, and they're operating at 30 to 40% vacancy rates, which makes it really difficult when you're in the emergency communications business. This trend right now appears to be occurring outside of the borders of the Midwest region. We're seeing, East Coast, West Coast, to the south of us, and even into Canada, where they're struggling to fill operator positions. But right now, here in the Midwest, we're still having a very successful time of recruiting new operators. So, strategies that have been implemented so far are hiring bonuses to try and attract staff, significant salary increases. But so far, none of those things have proven to be very effective for those organizations that are struggling to recruit. We believe that what it's really about, at least here at Metro Communications, is workload and responsibility of 911 operators to make sure that we're keeping a close eye on any additional activities that we require our officers to do. Being ahead of staffing shortages to make sure that we're not overloading our staff, and just being vigilant and intentional in our hiring process to make sure that we're hiring the right individuals that are looking for a long-term career. So far that's been successful for us. Yes, Commissioner?
I'm sorry to interrupt, but do you guys do exit interviews not only for the ones who leave that are employed, but also the ones that are in training that don't finish?
Yes, we do. That's part of Anna's job with our HR is to do exit interviews and you know, try and determine the reasons why people would leave the agency. And of course, we're always open for opinion from our operators that are staying in the agency to give us feedback, so.
Can you summarize that kind of at some point in the future about what your experience has been?
Sure.
Sorry. Great question.
So I'll move into the third item of the, my report, which is to introduce you to the 911 Saves Act. U.S. representatives from California and Pennsylvania have reintroduced the 911 Saves Act in April of this year. What that stands for is it's the Supporting Accurate Views of Emergency Services. It's an act that legislation is seeking to classify 911 operators from office and administrative support to instead protective service occupations in the Office of Management and Budget Standard and Occupational Classification. So essentially classifying them as public safety individuals. The act is supported by the Association of Public Safety Communication Officers, which is APCO, and then also the NENA group, which is the National Emergency Number Association, and the American Federation of State, County, and Municipal Employees. The 911 Saves Act passed the House of Representatives as part of the fiscal 2022 National Defense Authorization Act, and the 911 Saves Act was first introduced to Congress in 2019. The reclassification of operators has been a trend that is gaining support from local, state, and other government entities. The reclassification of 911 operators affords them the same public safety recognition and benefits as other public safety or protective service occupations. So for our staff here, I know that I've been involved in a few different conversations, and really what it relates to is just that recognition of being at the tip of the spear, as we always say, in public safety. And I think you know, that's something that our staff will be involved with as this process moves forward in this state. I expect that this trend will continue to move across the nation, and at some point in time, perhaps our legislators will, you know, have to look at that as something to, you know, pass through legislation. So, any questions on that at all? Okay.
Well, Scott, yes, a follow-up. I mean, what would that take here to get your personnel classified in that way? Does that have to be legislative action?
Well, what's currently being proposed by NENA and APCO is they're advising Psaps, emergency communication centers across the nation, to start looking at revising job descriptions. So that includes some of those things that are related to public safety positions. And then, of course, generally what that will lead to is in each state is the retirement system. It's a different class of retirement from a Class A to a Class B. So that would have to be looked at as well.
Okay.
I will when I talk, yeah.
Okay, we'll go to item number 4. In 2019, Metro established a retention committee to explore retention strategies amongst our staff. One of the ideas that came from that group was to explore the implementation of a 12-hour shift and a 36-hour work week. The purpose of this 12-hour shift is to promote a life-work balance by having more days off to provide an additional rest period between you know, their days off and coming back to work. A recent survey of our staff indicated that we had 20 operators that were in favor of a 12-hour shift. We had 17 that were opposed, and we had 7 that were indifferent. Some of that opposition was not necessarily to the 12-hour shifts, but instead they needed more information about how it might impact scheduling and other things in the organization. In order to maintain that same level of coverage, 4 additional operators would need to be hired, but our financial goal is to defray much of that cost of the additional operators through reduced hours due to the 36-hour work week. So our current staff that would go to a 36-hour work week, some would be on a 36-hour, some would be on a 40-hour. that savings, if you will, or that reduced amount of work week would be what we'd look to hire the additional operators so that we could have the same level of coverage. Our staffing goal is to create greater work-life balance and minimize the recruitment and training costs, because it's extremely expensive for us, as I indicated earlier, when you have 5 people that are working their way through a 26-week training program, and at some point during that training, they choose to leave the agency. So we're trying to retain instead of recruit. So the next item on my list is the International Academies of Emergency Dispatch provides emergency medical dispatch protocols to more than 3,600 centers worldwide, with approximately 300 agencies obtaining the elite title of being identified as an Accredited Center of Excellence, or ACE. Metro is one of those 300 organizations across the world that has that elite title. And we have had that title for almost 20 years. Metro began its 3-year accreditation process this fall, and upon submitting all the necessary information and other things that our case reviewer needed, it was discovered that Metro needed to make some adjustments in our call taking in order to retain our ACE certification. Metro has already provided a 30-minute training with all staff, and an additional training just occurred in our in-service a week or so ago. Metro is continuing to work with the ACE board to complete our reaccreditation process. This falls under the responsibility of our quality assurance coordinator, Justin Faber, who's present today, if you would have any questions for him. What I would say is that Metro operators are doing an excellent job right now in providing emergency medical dispatch service. Our performance, based upon the 25 calls that we submitted to the ACE accreditation agency, they said that there were 0 chief complaint errors, 0 pre-arrival instruction errors, 0 final coding errors, 0 diagnostic errors, and 0 protolink errors. The adjustments that we need to make are all script standards. So in other words, they're requiring us to read the protocols word for word versus interjecting words that might sound more personable or friendly or softer. It is common for experienced ACE agencies like Metro to make slight deviation from script in order to become less robotic and more personable in the call-taking process. While these deviations don't present a legal challenge in most cases, any deviation from the protocol as they are written has the potential risk for error in questioning. We're currently working with the IAD, the International Academy of Emergency Dispatch, to provide an on-site training course to help alleviate staff concerns related to protocol script. Again, if you have any questions, Justin's here today. He's continuing to work through this process. But it's definitely, the ACE accreditation piece is, it's a long accomplishment in our agency, and we'd like to try and continue to maintain that status and be one of the lead organizations.
What's the primary benefit of having the accreditation? Do we get reimbursements or something, or is it just a seal of approval type thing?
Right, so we actually, I believe, pay to be accredited, an accredited agency. The benefit is that to be ACE certified, we have to send our calls for evaluation into the ACE group to review. If you're not accredited, you don't do that process. You evaluate in-house, and then you have that opportunity to maybe deviate from script in some way that fits your agency. But by sending them in to be scored by the ACE group, that holds us to the standard of following protocols per script, and along with a lot of other policies that are in play. So it's really a tool to make sure that we're following the EMD protocols with the T's crossed and the I's dotted.
Thanks.
Does it assist in, for instance, grant applications and things of that nature to have that certification?
Well, I would certainly think it would help. You know, anytime you're applying for grant funds, the more accomplishments that you can show, you know, the better luck you'll have with the process. But, you know, and like I said, there's only 300 of these across the world. So some of those are hospital-type systems, some of those are ambulance-type systems, and then some are emergency communication centers. So when you divide it like that, there's probably only, you know, 100 Psaps across the world that have this certification. So, but it is a challenge at times for our staff. I've heard a lot of feedback that it does, in some regard, take away their ability to deviate from the script, and they have to follow the script word for word. Okay. Move on to the next thing, which is we deployed 6 tablet computers in 2015 to support our operations. These tablets have become obsolete. Some are not even functioning anymore. We had a couple of opportunities for grant funding, so we submitted a grant to the Sioux Falls Department of Health as well as the State 911 Coordination Board, and we've recently been informed that we have received funding to purchase 10 new tablet computers. So as a matter of fact, we already have received 2 of those. So those will help us in our operations. They'll provide better flexibility for the leadership staff to leave their office environment and to be on the floor and have access to all the information that they need to make decisions. So, and our ACOs will also use these in the training environment. Sometimes all of our councils are being operated, so the only tool that the ACO has available is to have this tablet to see what the recruit is doing without hovering over the recruit. So. All right, the next item on the list is the 911 Coordination Board funding assistance. You may recall that we received an allocation of $1,046,138.61. I've highlighted some things in yellow within this table. Those are items that have already been purchased from the $1 million. The things that are not highlighted, we intend to begin working on in either 2022 or 2023. But I just wanted to bring your attention to that list, and I'll continue to update this list as we proceed into our future council meetings. Some statistical information that I wanted to provide. Overall, 911 calls are up 4.9%. This is about double what our expected annual growth is for 911 calls. Administrative calls are up 3.35%. This is above our expected annual growth of 2.25%. Calls for service, where we're sending either ambulance, law enforcement, or fire services, those calls for service are up 3.2%. Above normal, but has become more stable over the last 4 to 5 months. This next piece is something that I think we should be really proud of as an agency, and that is that 911 call answer times in November, 90.89% of the time we answered those calls in under 10 seconds. 97.75% under 15 seconds we answered that call for service, or that telephone call. 99.03% under 20 seconds we answered that 911 call. The reason why I think we should be proud of that is right now, reading national publications, I'm seeing some places across the nation that call times are much longer than seconds. We're talking minutes in some locations. So it's something that I think we should be very proud of as a community, to know that when you call, that 911 call is going to be answered in less than 20 seconds.
If I could, Mayor?
Go ahead.
First of all, yes, great times. Of course, if you're in an emergency and you're sitting there, seconds can seem like minutes.
Right.
But, yeah, I'm just curious, Scott, why we would have such a low expected annual growth rate. Why wouldn't our growth rate kind of track with our population growth rate? I mean, which has typically been averaging 4 or 5%.
Sure. So, it depends on a lot of different things, but calls for service, appears to always kind of follow what your population growth are, but there's so many factors that can change that. Sometimes it's the size of the community, sometimes it's other aspects of public safety, sometimes it's there's just a long list of things, social services, all those things that can become involved that change how many calls for service the community will have. In our estimate here, this is an estimate that Justin Faber has used in the past to try and gauge what our growth will be so we can plan for staffing. So it's strictly a number that has been related to the past. And
So is
we try and
this
use it.
an anomaly then? I mean, has it been historically 2.5%, and this year it's just at 4%? So this is a one-off then?
Yeah.
Okay,
More
okay.
than anything, probably related to how stagnant 2020 was with COVID. So it
Okay.
doesn't surprise me that this would be a double growth year for us, because we kind of knew the population still grew in 2020, but our call for service volume didn't because of COVID. So I'd say it was expected, but still, that hits home when you have double your normal growth, so.
Thank you.
Any other questions on Scott's report here?
So just the last page to quickly go over here.
Sorry, I didn't see that.
So the top chart is phone calls in and out of our center. You'll notice that PD East, PD West, Minnehaha County Sheriff's Office, data, and even the City Fire Council, our call volume on those particular councils are decreasing, and that's something that we've been working on as an agency, is to not have an operator that's responsible for radio traffic to also be responsible for telephone traffic. So these are all trending in the right direction. You'll notice that the county fire, there are more calls being answered there, as well as the call taker positions. You may recall a year or so ago when we asked for the 4 positions, that was one thing we wanted to do, is create call taker positions so that we could have less calls being answered by these other boards. So we're headed in the right direction. I will say that there are some deviations to this because of the fact that we have moved duties around between councils due to COVID and some other aspects of our business. But for the most part, I do believe that these trends are going in the right direction at all of these boards. So the bottom board is an indication of our calls for service as well as radio transmits. On the left side of the chart is the calls for service. On the right side is the transmits. You'll see down the left side, it's pretty steady across the board for police, fire, and EMS calls for service. On the right side, same thing. You'll see that under the police, we're at the 3+ million push to talks annually, and we believe that is a bit of an indication that that number likely won't be able to rise because we are at what's called agency occupancy, meaning that the staff that are at those boards are doing all that they can already, so they can't do more. So that's why that number appears to have leveled off, is because they're already as busy as they can be. And that, Mayor, is the end of the director's report.
All right, thanks, Scott. Any other questions for Scott on his report there? All right, we'll move on to item 5, our 2022 meeting schedule, draft schedule. It's at the bottom of the agenda there, what's being proposed. Unless there's any conflicts anybody knows off the top of their head, we'll just roll with that.
Yep.
It's all good. I don't think we need a formal action on that, but that will be our 2022 schedule.
I'm gonna miss the August and December ones.
Yeah, you're terming out, man. We got one more with you?
You can
2 more.
come.
We got 2 more with you.
Yeah, you can
2
still
more.
go.
Yeah.
Yeah, I could.
Yeah.
And we get an upgrade. All right, yeah. That's a great point, though. We will lose both Counselor Erickson and Counselor Kiley next year off this council, because they're both termed out as counselors, so there will be new assignments to this council mid-year per our bylaws, so. Item 6, approval of 8 hours of administrative pay for December 24, 2021.
Sure. In previous years, the Metro Management Council approved 8 hours administrative pay for Christmas Eve. In the past, it's been a practice that's been similar to other local governments. Metro Communications Bargaining Agreement and Personnel Manual recognizes December 25th, Christmas Day, as a paid holiday, but not Christmas Eve. I'm submitting this for your consideration, and I understand that there may or may not be some differences with the holiday landing on a weekend this time around, so. we're open.
What's the historical context on that? How do we do this in the past?
Typically, in the past, Metro Management Council has approved, at least in the recent years. But my understanding is that, you know, the county may or may not be approving some type of Christmas Eve or administrative pay this year. City, I'm not sure, you know, what the consideration there is either. So I thought that we'd bring it today
Yeah.
and let you folks, you know, have some conversation about what's going on at the city and county level. And if this is something you'd want to support, we appreciate it. If not, we understand.
Yeah.
If I could, Mayor, the county is taking Christmas Day as a Saturday, so Friday is going to be the holiday, and we have no plans to add any additional pay for the
Sure.
county level. So, and I think doing this, and I hate to be the bad guy, but I'll say it, I mean, would just create disparity between levels of government. I don't know what the state is doing. I don't know what your intents are, but at the county level,
We did give an administrative day for the 23rd, so Scrooge McDuck over here, we did do that. So it's really, you know, my approach in improving that was there's so few tools or mechanisms we have like this to do something for our team. Okay, we can't bonus them, year-end bonus, like private, so I do have that power via executive order for the city, so I'm like, wow, if this is something one of the tools I can use, we did it. So I'm more inclined to issue this than not. And we've done it every year I've been the mayor, so that's why the precedent, you see, to your point, precedent, we set the precedent on the other side, so it'll be hard for me to swing it back. You have press on the county side, so I don't know if you guys have any thoughts?
I would agree. I mean, Christmas Eve, whether it's falling on a weekend or the middle of the week, to me, it doesn't make any difference. And I think it is just a small gesture that we can make to our staff that serve in such important roles. So I personally am in favor of this.
You don't know what the state's doing at this point?
I am not aware of what the state is intending to do.
I'm going to guess with this, the governor's been pretty generous with this type of leave also, and the county has given, if Christmas Eve was a Thursday or whatever, we would give half a day. I mean, so, and the decision hasn't been made as a final for the county either, but I can guess the state's going to be doing something similar.
Yeah.
Well, we won't tell anybody, Commissioner.
Well, we can vote on it, and if it's 2-2, it doesn't pass. So, are you guys all right with us just voting on this? You want to have any more discussion? I can see where it puts you guys in an interesting spot.
It
Because
does.
of the position you took
Yeah,
with the
it
county
does.
versus this, so,
Now, the interesting part is that most of our departments are connected to the state with some regularity, almost like a satellite location.
Sure.
So it'd be nice to know what the state was doing, but do you know, Sheriff?
tell you what, how about let's defer this item. Let's see what the state's doing, and we can take a vote over email. We can send this out
Sure.
to the council via an email and vote that
You know,
way.
If
Is
the
that all right?
state's doing it, I would be in favor of doing it also.
Are we
because-
able to do that? Wouldn't be a public
Can we-
public meeting.
May I?
I'm trying to look it up right now, too.
All right, well, let's
I
maybe circle back to
Make
this.
a motion. I guess I propose a motion that we give you the authority as the chair of this commission to follow what the state does.
Okay,
We could do that.
yeah, can we do that? We can vote on that. Whatever the state's doing, we will follow as Metro. Okay. All right, so that's the motion. We got a second for that?
Second.
Okay, I think that's a good solution.
Get in a big hurry, we could do it right now.
So will you retract the
Well-
Scrooge?
We could
Retract the Scrooge statement, yeah, strike that from the minutes, though. Scrooge McDuck.
Ooh, that must have stung just a tiny bit.
Yeah, a little.
We can always reconsider, by the end of the meeting, if we come up with an answer prior to the end of the meeting.
All right.
Again, certainly appreciated whatever direction we go. We just wanted to bring it to you for consideration.
Okay, well, let's vote on the motion. We're going to align our action with whatever the state is doing on this item. That's the motion, the second. So all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? All right. We'll do that, and we'll maybe no by the end of the meeting. Item 7, approval of resolution 21-02, employee benefits.
Okay, Metro Communications Agency provides various benefits to our staff through contracted vendors. Our staff have the opportunity to receive EAP resources through the First Responder Assistance Program, known as FRAP, a new EAP program that's designed specifically for first responders and their families, and it's provided through the South Dakota Municipal League Workers' Compensation Fund, which is our insurance carrier. I'm requesting Metro Management Council to adopt Resolution 21-02, recognizing the addition of the FRAP as an additional EAP program for our staff and their families.
All right. Got any question on that one, Dean?
Scott, I know Ona's been doing a lot of your HR work. Do you have an HR resource available to you?
Anna certainly works with the city and the county as needed, if there is assistance needed, but Anna is really a one-person resource in our agency that handles all financial and HR duties.
She's done a great job up to this point, but there are times, and I've come to understand this greater and greater in my time in office, how much to appreciate an HR full-time dedicated, and obviously you don't need that, but you know, I look at the volume of things we're going to be talking about: administrative pay, employee benefits, non-bargaining unit pay, and so on and so forth. That to have, I mean, there are companies that, you know, do HR consulting work, and I don't know if you're at that point where you should be considering a contract for that type of work. City of Brandon does that. You know, they don't have an full-time HR department, but they do contract out their HR work.
Anna and I have spoke on many occasions about how critical the work is that she does for our agency, and man, we couldn't run our business without the support that Anna provides, and she is very much appreciated in our agency. And as a matter of fact, coming up here, we're going to request that business support specialist to try and lighten her workload a little bit so that we can.
And I'm not trying to replace her. I'm trying to give her the help
Right.
that, you know.
Right.
Yeah, yeah. And, yeah, so take it for what it's worth, I guess.
I think that the point being, because I agree, sometimes that's supplemented via staff. We'll talk about that. Sometimes a vendor is maybe a good route to go because there's continuity in that as well. It's not depending on if someone leaves, goes,
Sure.
and all that knowledge leaves. We got a partner. So I think that's what Commissioner Karski's getting at. I think it's a good point, and we'll probably talk about that more in its upcoming item. So on this item, is there a motion to
Move to
approve this?
approve. I would second that.
All right, motion to approve by Karski, seconded by Benninga. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? All right, we'll move to item 8, Resolution 21-03, non-bargaining unit pay.
Sure. The bargaining unit of Metro Communications approved to enter into a 3-year labor agreement with Metro Communications on December 9th, 2020. This agreement stipulates a 1.75% cost of living adjustment for the year 2022. This request is for salaried staff to receive the same 1.75% COLA in order to prevent compression between the various employment positions at Metro Communications. In addition, this resolution establishes the pay grades and scales for the new positions of full-time division supervisor and part-time business support specialists. And I just respectfully request your approval of Resolution 21-02.
All right. Questions on this one?
I don't have a question, but I will tell you that I think we have all experienced across whatever business we're in or public relationships that cost of living is above 1.75
Yeah.
significantly.
Yeah.
What's
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
What is it 1% pay raise equal to for an annual?
About $35,000 in our organization for
Okay.
1%.
Do you have room in your budget for 275?
We do have another agenda item coming up towards the end that involves some negotiation of wages.
Okay.
I guess the other question I have, because I don't know the answer, obviously, is how much flexibility do we have with the union contract?
Very little typically.
That's what I was thinking.
Yeah.
But I don't know.
Yeah, very little. If there's going to be any adjustment to that COLA number, you have to reopen the contract, reopen the negotiations. So, and then that's reopening all the negotiations. Everything's back on the floor. So, yeah. Okay. Well, do we want to get a motion to approve this item?
Move to approve.
Second.
All right, motion by Kylie, seconded by Karski to approve item 8. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right. Item 9, adoption of personnel manual revisions, Article 4, Section 4.18 holidays, Article 5, Section 5.01 drug and alcohol-free workplace plan, and Article 7, Section 7.01 group health and dental insurance, 7.02 group life insurance, 7.03 voluntary supplemental insurance offerings, 7.05 employee assistance program.
Okay, just to add a little bit to that, the 4.18 holidays adds Juneteenth as an additional recognized holiday through the year 2022. And then, of course, once our union negotiations occur, we'll have further discussion at that point. Article 5.01 talks about the drug and alcohol-free workplace plan. This is this implements changes due to the recent South Dakota medical marijuana legislation. Article 7.01, group health and dental insurance, as well as 702, which is group life insurance, and 703, voluntary supplemental insurance. These revisions clarify the definition of full-time staff and eligibility for benefits. So 40-hour work week, 36-hour work week, just identifies that. And then Article 7, Section 705, Employee Assistance Program. This revision adds that First Responder Assistance Program as a new EAP program for us, which we talked about previously.
Reminder to me on that, the EAP program is new for you guys?
It is not new. We've traditionally had EAP services. We do still have family services here in Sioux Falls. This is just an additional resource for us and our
Okay.
staff.
Okay. Okay. All right. Any questions for Scott on any of these? We're going to adopt all these in one fell swoop here. Take a motion on them.
Move to approve.
Second.
All right. Motion by Kylie, seconded by Karski there. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right. Those are going to get adopted, and we'll move to item 10, Psap construction and procurement.
Sure. Now that we've had groundbreaking and we're seeing some progress on the new public safety training campus site, it reminds us that the City of Sioux Falls and Minnehaha County adopted a joint public safety answering point agreement that establishes each entity's responsibility in the construction of a public safety answering point facility. Metro Communications has identified 2 significant equipment purchases that will need to be ordered in 2022 to secure our quoted pricing. The first being the Motorola radio system, the second being dispatch council furniture. I've created 2 charts. The first chart at the bottom identifies the furniture, fixtures, and equipment items to be purchased by Minnehaha County with a total amount of $2,150,000. And then the second chart identifies FF&E items that will be purchased with state 911 funding. As I mentioned, during calendar year 2022, I'm seeking some type of authorization or approval to move forward on these projects, specifically Motorola radio system and dispatch console furniture, in order to secure that pricing.
All right. And this, Sean Pritchett talked to me about some purchase we were gonna defer. Is that a upcoming item? Or we were gonna defer the receipts of the dollars from the county for?
Yes, good point, Mayor, that although these will be ordered in 2022, the payment wouldn't be due until 2023.
Okay.
Which is coming up as another agenda item.
Got it, okay. Okay, so this is just authorization to procure the bids.
Yes, and we'll follow all state bidding rules, purchasing rules, and so forth.
Okay?
Scott, I thought we had a contract with Motorola to provide those.
We do, and like I said, I'd have to order that later this fall, or excuse me, in fall
So
of
they're still under
2022.
contract, basically.
Motorola is under contract,
Okay.
but at some point, I'll tell them to go ahead with that order. And then the furniture, the dispatch council furniture, I've been in contact with our preferred vendor, and I'm being told that furniture shipping costs and so forth is rising
Imagine that.
pretty dramatically. So we're just trying to lock in that pricing. We've had a couple different thoughts about how to do that, but at some point, I would have to order some of the items, if not all of the items, with the payment due in 2023.
All right, thanks, Scott. Any other questions on that one then? All right, take a motion on it.
Move to approve.
Second.
All right, motion by Kylie, seconded by Benninga. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, that one passes as well. Item 11 is the revision of the Joint Public Safety Answering Point Agreement as a supplement to the Joint Cooperative Agreement for Communications Services.
Okay, in 2021, the city of Sioux Falls and Minnehaha County adopted the Joint Public Safety Answering Point Agreement, and that's a supplement to the Joint Cooperative Agreement for Communication Services, which was adopted on December 20th, 2010, with an effective date of January 1st, 2011. Section 5 of the Joint Public Safety Answering Point Agreement obligates Minnehaha County to deposit into Metro Communications Agency account the sum of $2,150,000 on or before January 31st of 2022. The revised agreement changes that date of deposit from January 31st, 2022 to January 31st, 2023.
And it's my understanding the rationale behind this is we don't need the money next year.
Correct.
So Carol's gonna go make some interest on it for a
Correct.
year and then we'll get it. All
Move
right.
approval.
Second.
Okay, motion by Karski, second by Benninga to approve this item. We will take a vote on that.
Checks in the mail.
Yeah. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right. That passes. Item 12 is the approval of the 2022 Minnehaha County Metro PSB lease agreement.
Sure. Metro Communication leases 4,296 square foot of space from Minnehaha County within the public safety building. The lease is renewed annually and runs from January 1st to December 31st. According to the 2021 lease agreement, the lease rate will increase at the Midwest Urban CPI Index 6.56%, which results in a 78-cent per square foot increase from $11.88 a square foot to $12.66 a square foot, for a total of $54,400.77, paid in 12 monthly installments of $4,533.40.
All right. Any questions on that?
Part of the agreement we had with construction of the facility, and we were going to use this as a backup, so we had already kind of agreed to this lease.
There is a change for 2023 where that
Okay.
that language will be
Gotcha.
changed. But for this year in 2022, it remains the same as the previous
Okay.
lease.
Is that a motion?
Move for approval.
Okay.
Second. Kylie?
All right. Motion by Benninga, second by Kylie to approve this item. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? All right, that one passes. Item 13 are financial statements as of November 30 of this year.
Okay, I'm going to ask Business Manager Anna Raker to step up and review those with you.
Hey, Anna.
Hi, good
How are you?
afternoon. Good, how are you?
Good.
Good. So I know these numbers are pretty small. You all have packets, and for those of you here in attendance, there are packets if this is too small for you to read. So you have in front of you your financials for the 11 months ending November 30th, 2021. And we'll start out with the balance sheet. One of the things that's going to jump out at you with the balance sheet is that our cash has improved substantially from a year ago. The balance sheet looks at the same period in the prior year. And really that increase is due in great part to the fact that when we budgeted for 2021, we budgeted to add to reserves rather than use reserves, which had been our focus in prior years. And then the other thing you have going on is a year ago, we had a delayed receipt of 911 surcharge revenue. I don't know if you remember that, but they were just a little slow in getting those revenues out, and that's over $200,000. So the combination of all of that explains why our cash is a little higher this year. It makes sense. There's nothing unusual about it. The other thing I will point out is the due from state and the due from county. We've exceeded our estimated receivables that we put together at the end of last year in our audit report. And so we're doing well there. Just scrolling down a little bit. Hold on here, I'm going to get to a different sheet myself. Accounts receivable has decreased, and that's really just due to the timing of billing. Accounts payable has increased, and that really, again, is just timing of billing or timing of payments. In 2020, I paid the retirement at the end of November versus waiting until after the first of the month. It was just the way things worked out with my schedule, so. The other thing is our payroll deductions payable will change a little bit. It has to do with our flex benefit provider and how we manage those funds. So you see a small increase when you're looking at accounts payable. One of the things Scott and I talked about earlier today is our vacation liability line item decreased as at the end of 2020. And really, part of that is staffing, but the other part of it, I think, is a credit to our management team and the work we've put into with temp staff and just staffing to ensure that staff can get time off when they need it. And that's reflected in our year-end balance sheet with our accrued liabilities. And so when vacation goes down, that's just an indication of that, which is a positive move towards work-life balance for our team. Moving on to the next page is our current versus prior year actual, and this is in a summary form. And so what we're looking at here is major categories, and we're looking at January through November in the current year and January through November in 2020. And you'll notice there the difference in surcharge revenues, and that's what we talked about earlier, is that a year ago they were delayed and they didn't get our November check arrived at around the same time as our December check. City and county support shows a budgeted increase, which we knew, and that reflects that. The services increase really is in great part to EMS transfers. We had a rate increase, plus our numbers are a little stronger this year as compared to last year. And last year, if you recall, we had a little bit of a decline, and it was around the time COVID occurred. I'm not sure how to really relate that, but people were maybe going out less activity. Grants, when you're looking at grants, this includes local funding streams. And Scott has mentioned to you before how hard we've worked in the last couple years to secure other funding opportunities. And so you do see that increase that from last year to this year. The other thing I'll mention, Scott talked about the Work Surface Pros, and we just secured some more grant funds late this fall. So you're going to see that number increase by the time you see your December report when we meet again in the spring. So we've done a great job of trying to utilize those resources to alleviate pressure on the city and the county and Metro's cash flow. Our other revenue decrease is really, a lot of that is interest. Not knowing when we budgeted where the pandemic was going to happen and what was going to happen with the economy. Moving on to expenditures. Personnel increased about $50,000. It's really reflective of COLA and step increases. We still continue to maximize temp staff to cover vacancies and provide for work-life balance for our full-time staff whenever possible. In the devil in the details behind this is our overtime is lower again this year than a prior year, and we did the same thing last year. We've been working at trying to reduce overtime as much as possible, right? And then the other thing is group health insurance is fairly flat from 2020 to 2021. We fared very, very well in our quotes and the plans that we secured for our team. And we have a strong participation in our group health insurance plan. It's a good 75% of staff, so it's well used by our team. Operating expenses, there's just a couple things that jump out. Professional services decreased. Some of this is due to year-end bills, but it's also due to, we had some unusual expenses in 2020 related to kind of some staff development type things. Repairs is simply just the timing of the public safety invoicing for Metro's share of that. They billed us in December last year and November this year, and so we paid it timely, and that's why it shows differently. And that's a significant bill. Supplies are a little more this year. Oops. And supplies are include several of the grant-funded purchases that Scott has talked to you about. So they're a little high this year. They'll probably go down next year until we get to the point where we're starting to purchase items for the new facility. Utilities are fairly stable, and there was just some small miscellaneous decrease due to COVID-related expenditures. So meaning we had some more expenditures in 2020 that we didn't have this year when we had to implement some things just to keep staff separate. Moving on to our budget report, and then this one is the comparison of year-to-date budget, year-to-date expenditures, and the variance in dollars. And then we look at the percentage of our annual budget. So there's two items that you see in this particular purview. November of 2000, November would be 92%, or excuse me, yes, November would be 92% of the year for just normal revenues and expenditures, but remember that 911 surcharges are always 2 months behind because there's a 45-day delay, so really they should be around 75%. I'm projecting that our 911 revenues are going to be very, very close to our budget, give or take maybe $5,000 right now. I don't have any control over what's going to happen over the next 3 months, but right now we seem to be on track, and there hasn't been anything out of the ordinary, so that's looking pretty good. I think we'd all love to see them go way up, but we know that we've been increasing our subscriber lines, but statewide the numbers still remain fairly flat, and so we seem to be getting a bigger piece of the subscribers because of our population growing. But when we look at the incentive dollars, remember those are still a single pot of money. And so if the statewide numbers are kind of going down a little and ours are going up, they're remaining flat. And so we're not seeing the growth in that particular pot of funds. Those are staying pretty stable. When we look at our budget, all of our Psap billing has been submitted and received. Audio fees have increased a little bit this year. That's a very volatile number. It can change from year to year, but we've had a great year for audios. And then Paramedics Plus, both the rates and the numbers of transfers have increased. And we have 2 months remaining there because we can't bill until after the first of the month. Other revenue is, the decrease is largely due to interest income, and then we haven't had as many PD saturation reimbursements. But that means we haven't had the expenses because we only request reimbursement for what we actually incur over and above our normal salaries in order to support the law enforcement team for those saturations. Personnel. When you look at personnel, we're doing very well. We do have some vacancies right now. I am estimating that our salaries are going to be a couple $100,000 under budget right now. Our overtime is going to be a little over budget based on our current projections. Along with that, taxes and retirement will drop. Our temp are very close to budgeted amount based on my projections. Group health, again, I think we're going to be around 70,000 under budget, and that's really doing in great strides to how well we did on our rates. And I'll just take the opportunity to let you know that for 2022, our rates fared very, very well again. We have under a 4%, and actually the effective rate is closer to under 3% increase. So we should be very happy with how well we did and what that will do to help us in our personnel budget items. Okay. When you look at expenditures, maintenance contracts, we talked about that we're billed in November this year instead of December, and so that shows there. Scrolling down to dispatch communications and the amount there, our SIP lines ended up being a little more expensive than what we originally anticipated they would be, and we've talked about this earlier this year. But as we get to the end of the year, that increase is becoming more and more obvious. So just a reminder that we knew that once we got in. Our original estimate was a little lower than what they actually ended up being.
What is that expense for specifically?
I'll let Scott talk to you about that.
Sure, the SIP lines helped us to build better redundancy into our backup center by having the standard internet protocol ability at that backup center. We can now add additional phones. Otherwise, we were limited to the 6 positions we had down there, but by having this availability, we're able to establish more phone soft phones through a laptop computer. We can set up.
Are we talking about dispatch communications?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. Okay.
Any follow-up? You good?
I might ask questions privately. I'm just trying to understand it, but yeah. So we kind of were anticipating it might get to where it is, but yeah.
At the time we budgeted, we had an estimate for that cost to implement that, and then once we started implementing it, we realized that we had under budgeted. And so earlier in the year, when we only meet a few times a year, it wasn't quite as obvious, but we knew that by the time we got to 12 months at that rate, it was going to be a little more significant. I think we budgeted $800 and some per month for those SIP lines, and what we're paying is over $1,400. So you take that over the course of a year, and it adds up. And that's not maybe as significant of an increase in your size of budget, but for Metro's budget, when our total operating expenditures are where they are, every little bit is obvious.
Good.
Okay. The other thing, and I don't know if you want to address this, Scott, but Scott and I talked this morning, and he reminded me that we just found out earlier this week that the public safety software has agreed to a $0 increase for 2022. And that's a nice thing for all of us. And Metro's share of that cost is over $60,000. And that's the bill I mentioned that you see the adjustment from last year to this year because we had been paying it in December and we paid it in November this year. But, the share for your departments is obviously much greater than Metro's. So it's a significant item for all of us.
Okay, other questions on the financials for Anna? All right. Looks like there's an amendment, though, that we need to consider on the budget. Is that correct?
Yes, and
Item-
would you accept a motion to accept the?
Oh, yes, I'm sorry.
That's
I
okay.
need a
So
motion to
moved.
accept the financials.
So moved.
All right, motion by Karski, seconded by Kylie. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, those are accepted. Item 14 then is approval of a 2021 budget amendment.
Right, so we're requesting a budget amendment, and the reason for this amendment relates back to the funding streams that Scott is in our team have been able to secure. And some of these items we've been able to absorb within our budgets just due to savings in other areas. But my request for the amendment would be that you make a motion to amend our budget to increase operating expenditures in the amount of $15,000, capital outlay in the amount of $7,000, funded by increased revenues in the amount of $22,000.
Move
Okay.
approval.
Second.
All right, motion by Karski, seconded by Kylie to adopt this amendment as presented. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? All right, that is going to pass. Item 15, exec session. I don't believe we have any exec session.
We do have a need for an
needs.
executive session.
We do, okay. Okay, well then, move us into exec session. I need a motion, I always forget how to do this. I need a motion to move us into exec session. Anna, is that how it works?
Mhm.
Okay.
So moved, Benninga.
All right, motion by Benninga, seconded by Karski to move us into exec session. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, we'll break out, jump into the side room, and then we'll be back in here when we call us out.